Hello everyone. Today I discuss about the plant adaptation. We know that all the living beings maintain a particular lifestyle pattern to survive in the system, and sometimes they also change their lifestyle pattern to sustain or to survive in the natural system, and these maintain due to the natural selection process, because the natural event does not occur in a continuous process, does not occur in a uh, subsequent process, but it also takes place in different variations. So all the forms of life that change their lifestyle, maintain their life pattern by the natural selection process to survive in the world or survive in their particular habitat. This is the adaptation, and the plant is not also a exception. So in order to withstand adverse condition, there are so many adverse conditions those have been faced by the plant as well as animal, and these conditions also occurred or exist in the environment. And by facing these adverse condition and utilize to their maximum benefit for the nutrient uptake and prevailing other conditions, to sustain or to combat these adverse condition, to face these adverse condition, the plant also develop some morphological, anatomical and physiological as well as reproductive character in their life pattern, in their organization, in their body structure, to sustain, to survive in the system. This is the adaptation. Next is the, if we see that in the ecological background, the plants are mainly three types based on their water requirement and nature of soil. That is where they grow their habitat. Based on their habitat, they are mainly three types. One is hydrophyte, another one is mesophyte, and another one is xerophyte. If we see that hydrophyte means those growing in the water or near the water, that is, if only plant grow in the water, they call hydrophyte. Rather than not, this is not. If a plant grow near the water, this is also a hydrophytic plant. Next is the mesophyte. We know that in the terrestrial condition, all the plants which are growing in the dry or very wet condition, they are known as the mesophyte. And third one is the xerophyte. We know that the extreme adverse condition which we can find in the zero xeric condition, and the plant which grow in the xeric condition, these are known as xerophyte. And because of the xeric in nature, they cannot avail the water very easily. The water supply is very poor, and the availability of water in their habitat is very poor. That's why they are known as xeric condition or xerophyte plant. Next, we discuss about the hydrophyte. Our main focus is to adaptive feature of the hydrophyte, adaptive feature of the xerophyte, and adaptive feature of the mesophyte. In this lecture, I discuss about the hydrophyte, the adaptive character of hydrophyte. We know that hydrophyte, hydro means water and phyte means plant. And these two terms originated from the Hudor in the Greek word and phyton in the Greek word. And Hudor is called water and phyton is called plant. That is the water plant. And those plants grow in the water. They are known as the hydrophyte. So some example, if we see the hydrophyte, Valisneria, Hydrilla, Cara, Nitella, Lotus, Creatophyllum, Trappa, Pistia, Acornia, which is known as water hyacinth, Wolfia, smallest flower, Limna, these are the hydrophytes. And based on their growing pattern, where some plants grow below the water, some plants grow surface of the water, and some plants grow near the water. Based on this growing pattern, they are also classified in the three different types. One is submerged hydrophyte, second one is floating hydrophyte, and third one is amphibious hydrophyte. Submerged, those grow below the water level, they are known as submerged. Next is the floating hydrophyte, those grow on the upper surface of water body, they are known as the floating hydrophyte. And another one is amphibious hydrophyte, those grow near the water body, these are called amphibious hydrophyte. So let's come to the different adaptive character in the sense of morphological, physiological, and anatomical pattern of hydrophyte. Let's talk about the morphological adaptation of hydrophyte. We know that morphology means the outer expression of plant. Outer expression, that means outer characteristic features of plant, which is known as morphological adaptation. So if we think that the if we think from the root level to upper level, that means root to leaf. So here the root system in hydrophyte is not developed. That means this is the poorly developed, because the root is essential for the absorption of water. But in hydrophyte, those grow on the hydric condition or water body, they already as covered or surrounded by the water. That's why they do not need to absorb water from the soil. That's why the root system is not better developed. Next one, in case of floating hydrophyte, that means those present on the upper surface of water body, they show the very poor development of root hair. We know that root hair is very essential, and root hair is important because of the absorption of water as well as absorption of minerals. So the absence of root hair is not affect their absorption of water as well as absorption of the minerals. And next, if we see in case of Acornia and Trappa, the petiole become characteristically swollen. This one is very important, and the identifying character, the swollen petiole and become spongy. Why? Because these swollen and spongy petiole provide their buoyancy. That's why they can float on the upper surface of the water body. So these two characters, swollen petiole and spongy petiole, these are two important characters that provide the buoyancy to the plant body for their morphological adaptation. Next, if we see in case of Hydrilla and Vallisneria and Elodia, their nourishment takes place through the body surface. This one is also important. Interesting. They absorb the nutrients, they absorb the minerals as well as water from their surface area, as they contact in between the water and their body surface. From these water and body surface, they absorb water as well as absorb the minerals. Next, come to the stem. What is the morphology of stem? If we see that the stem is short and spongy. Why spongy? Due to spongious nature, they can float on the surface, they can survive in the water body, and they have the extensive parenchyma with air, which is known as parenchyma. We know that in water growing plants, they have the parenchymatous parenchyma. That means parenchyma which contain air cavity. Within the air cavity, the air is present, which responsible for their floating nature. Next, pollination. This is very important. We know that pollination is required for their reproduction, and pollination is required for the fruit development, seed development, and in case of water hydrophytes, the dispersal of fruit, seed is also accompanied by the water. And the pollination type of the hydrophyte is known as hydrophily, because these transfer of pollen grain, or transfer of male gamete or pollen from one plant to another plant takes place by the water current. That's why it is known as hydrophilic pollination type. And the fruit dispersal, seed dispersal, they also accompanied by the water. Next is that the upper surface of the floating leaves are coated with wax. Okay, so upper surface is very bright in appearance. Why bright? Because of the presence of waxy nature, and this waxy nature prevent the wilting condition. We know that wilting is a very problematic condition for the plant, and to prevent the wilting condition, they the waxy nature is present in the upper surface of plant body. Next is the many of the partially submerged plant, partially submerged. Those submerged means those are present below the water body, and the partial submerged, they also present below the water body, but connect with the upper surface of the water body. And this type of submerged, partially submerged plant, that means Ranunculus aquatilis, which show the heterophyly. Hetero means, we know that hetero means different, and phyly means leaf. So the presence of different types of leaf, which is known as heterophyly, which we can found in the Ranunculus aquatilis. This is also a morphological adaptation. Next, come to the anatomical adaptation of hydrophyte. Morphology means we see from the outside, and the outer appearance of the plant or animal, which is known as morphology. And anatomical features means which can be occurred or seen, which can be occurred in or seen in the internal structure. So let's come to the anatomical adaptation. We have already told that, or we have already discussed about that, the root system is poorly developed. And if we see the root, in case of root system, there is the epidermis, cortex, lacuna, and all the cells are present in a vacuolar form. Next is the inner cortex, endodermis, pith, protoxylem, metaxylem, and phloem. We know that protoxylem, those which formed earlier, is known as protoxylem, and protoxylem after the simultaneous changes can form the metaxylem, and which is known as the which xylem which formed in the later condition, which is known as metaxylem. So if we see the root and shoot in case of hydrophytes, so the common anatomical feature as cuticle, which is very thin or absent. Cuticle is absent or very thin. The epidermis, if we see, the epidermis is single layer. Okay, and the cortex, which is well developed, it has numerous air chamber which provide the air, and this is responsible for the buoyancy and rapid gaseous exchange. These are the two important characters: buoyancy and rapid gaseous exchange. Buoyancy means they can float in the to the upper surface of the water body. As they present in the water or upper body, or that means they present in submerged condition or partially submerged condition or floating condition. That's why the mechanical tissue, which is responsible for the mechanical strength of the plant, the mechanical tissue are generally absent, because they does not require any mechanical support due to they present within the water body. Next is the vascular tissue. Vascular tissues, we know that the xylem and phloem is required for the xylem is required for the water absorption, and phloem is required for the nutrients transport, as they already present within the water, and they connect with water body for their minerals and water absorption with their body surface. That's why the vascular tissue is less developed, and the xylem vessels are less common. Xylem vessels, only tracheids are present sometimes, and their conduction mode is very low because they already absorb water from the water body by their body surface. Next is the stomata. We know that stomata is required for the transpiration, and stomata responsible for the release of water in the form of vapor. But in case of hydrophytes, the stomata are totally absent in submerged plant, because in case of submerged plant, they are already submerged within the body. So how can they perform the transpiration? For the performance or for the development of transpiration or opening of stomata, opening and closing of stomata, the air connectivity is very important. But in case of floating leaf, they have the stomata, and these stomata are confined in the upper surface, because their maximum part is present beneath the water. That's why the stomata are confined and upper surface. In case of amphibious plant, those which are present near the water body, they may be scattered in all the area parts, because they are not submerged, or they are not present in or upper surface of water body. They are present near the water body. That's why they show the stomata in scattered form. Next is their compensation point and low osmotic concentration. We know compensation point in exchange of CO2, oxygen, and osmotic concentration is very low, because they are already present in the water content. That's why the osmotic pressure is not much more effect there in their cells. Mucilage cell and mucilage canals secrete a mucilage to protect the plant body. This one is important. Mucilage canals decay underwater, because if we put something in the water, the components or organism becomes decay due to water absorption or due to heavy watery condition. That's why the mucilage, if you collect some water hydrophytes or water plants from the pond or your nearest watery area, you see that your hands becomes mucilaginous in condition, because the mucilage is present in the upper surface of the plant stem or root, and these mucilage protect their decay. Another point is the submerged leaf. Those leaves which are present below the water body, the air chambers are filled with respiratory and other gases and moisture. And this one is also important. Air chamber responsible for the respiration. So these are the main characteristic features of hydrophyte anatomical adaptation. Let's come to the physiological adaptation of hydrophytes. We know that physiological activity means there are so many activity which performed by the plant, and these are responsible for the metabolic activity. That's why these are known as physiological adaptation. The aquatic plants exhibit a low compensation point, I have already told, and low osmotic concentration, I have already mentioned in the anatomical character. Osmotic concentration of cell sap is equal or slightly higher than that of the water. Osmotic concentration of cell sap is equal because they are already present in the water body. That's why the solute cannot affect their uh, osmotic concentration, change in osmotic concentration, because when the solute is solute concentration is higher, at that time the water are taken by them by the body surface. Nutrients are absorbed by the submerged plant through the general plant surface. Already discussed. The gaseous exchange takes place through the surface cells. Already mentioned the morphological and anatomical character. The gases produced during the photosynthesis and respiration are partly retained in the air chamber of parenchyma to be utilized as and when required. This one is also an important character, physiological adaptation of hydrophyte, because they retain their gases which are produced during the photosynthesis, that means the oxygen, and respiration, that is the carbon dioxide. So when respiration takes place, they utilize the oxygen, and when photosynthesis takes place, they utilize the carbon dioxide. And these characteristic features, or these characters, is very much important for the hydrophyte. And they by these different adaptable character or different adaptable characteristics, they survive in the water body. So you have any question regarding this, you can post in the comment box. Thank you.